Hi everyone, our next exercise is 12-4, and what we're going to do here is we're going to determine the cash flows from a specific investment. Natural Foods is planning to invest in new manufacturing equipment to make a new garden tool. The new garden tool is expected to generate additional annual sales of 5,000 units at $18 each, so I've got that there. The new manufacturing cost will be $120,000. The equipment life is 10 years, and there's a residual value estimated of $17,000. They also tell us that selling expenses for this new product will equal 3% of the sales revenue. And then here are our per unit costs to manufacture. So one of the first things I want to point out is that when we're dealing with cash, we want to make sure that the costs that we're dealing with are cash flow. So the problem tells us that the fixed factory overhead is related to depreciation. So I'm going to put depreciation. And remember that depreciation is non-cash. So we will not use that amount when doing our calculations. Instead what we'll be using is just, so then our cash related costs are going to be direct labor of $2.50, direct materials of $3.20, and our variable factory overhead of 90 cents. So we're actually going to use an amount of $6.60 when we're doing our calculations. All right, and then what we're going to do on the table over here is we're going to fill this out. So you'll notice we've got a column for year 1. We have a column for years 2 through 9 because it'll be the same costs and everything during those years, and then the last year. So we're going to calculate out and we're going to fill in the table as we go along. So the first item you'll see is the initial investment, and they told us in the problem that our initial investment is $120,000. So I'm going to put that up here, and it's important to remember that because it is an investment, it's a cash outlay, so we do want to put that in as a negative number. Okay, we won't have anything to put in for years 2 through 9 in the last year because the initial investment is made completely in year 1. So then we're going to look at operating cash flows, and the first thing we need to calculate out is what the annual revenues are going to be each year. So if we look up here, over here, we're going to have annual revenue is calculated by taking the 5,000 units and multiplying it by the $18 selling price, and that's going to give us an amount each year for annual revenue of $90,000. So we can use that to fill in the annual revenues line on the table. So every year, annual revenues in year 1 will be 90,000. Annual revenues in each of years 2 through 9 will be 90,000. And that means that what we're saying here is there's annual revenues of 90,000 in year 2, 90,000 in year 3, 90,000 in year 4, 90,000 in year 5, 90,000 in year 6, and 90,000 in year 7, 8, and 9. And then finally, in the last year, we can also input that it's 90,000. So that's the first part. So then we also want to look at the annual selling expenses. You can see that's the last line. So if we come over here, the problem, we can calculate out selling expenses annual is going to equal the annual revenue times 3%, because remember the problem tells us that the selling expenses for the new product are 3% of sales revenue, and so that's going to come to $2,700. Okay, so that's the amount that we're going to input as our selling expenses in all three columns. Remember, selling expenses are outlays, 2,700. So you want to make sure that you're putting those in as negative numbers. So then you've got that. And then finally, the next thing we have to calculate out is the cost to manufacture. We know, if we're going to go over here to cost to manufacture. So again, we're looking at an annual amount. We're going to take those 5,000 units times our cash costs to manufacture of $6.60, and that amount is going to equal $33,000 per year. So we'll calculate and we'll put these in. We've got, for each year, we've got 33,000. And then in the next line, they want us to come up with our operating cash flows annually. So we're going to take the 90,000, we're going to subtract the 2,700 and the 33,000, and we're going to have net operating cash flows each year of $54,300. And now we can calculate up the amounts for each column that we have. So they want the total for year one. We have an initial outlay of $120,000. We'll have inflows of cash of $54,300. And so for year one of this investment, we will have a cash outlay of $65,700. In years 2 through 9, we're only looking at our operating cash flows. And so our net operating cash flows are $54,300. So our totals for each of those years will be $54,300. When we're looking at the residual value, that's an amount that will be coming back in the last year of $17,000. So when we're looking at that amount, we're going to take the net operating cash flows for the last year of $54,300. We're going to add to that the $17,000 from the residual value, and here we're going to get in the final year cash inflow of $71,300. So it's important to remember this is similar when we were doing the cash budget. In the budgeting chapter, when we're calculating cash flows, we want to take out any non-cash expenses. So that's how you calculate exercise 12-4.